Welcome to Coffee with the Sarlos. We are your hosts of the show, Karen and Kelly Sarlo. Whether you're struggling with grief or you just need answers, we connect you with spirit to find relief, clarity, and direction in life. We can help you move forward.
Hi, Kelly.
Good morning.
I'm going to call today's client, Kaya, and I'm going to launch right into a session I had with her that lasted for about half an hour over Zoom. At the very beginning of her session, after we went through the regular consent process, she said to me, Karen, I would like an open session in regards to asking the spirit guides something specific. Let me explain. I just want to know what they want to say to me that could help me with my life. And I like how she says that because it means you have permission to do any of the services. So I'm going wide open in that you've named 9 services, but I'm still giving you the direction that I want information that pertains to me. So if you're going to do medium, it's not going to be about them identifying themselves and talking about their life. She really does give the spirit guides a clear focus and me some sense of openness about using all of the gifts. And I'm going to say that the spirit guides obliged her right away. They were obviously quite prepared and said to me, we're going to talk to her about her mom and dad during this session and how she was raised. And we want her to know that she's to listen to everything that we want to share with her today, and she's to apply it to how she's behaving now. And if she wants to go back into childhood and to connect the wires, we would encourage her to do that. So I told her that.
What does that mean, connect the wires?
Ooh. Maybe let's tell the story. Can I tell the story how it goes?
That's what I'm hoping you're doing. You're the fucking storyteller. I'm the voice of the audience who are all confused.
Okay, then I'm just going to go ahead and tell the story as to what happens in her session, and we'll see if she connects the wires and what the guides meant.
All right.
Okay, so the first thing the guide said to me to say to her was that when she was little, whenever she got hurt, and went up to her mom and dad, and I'll say, really young, Kelly, when you might call it a bobo, or when because that means you're, I'll say under 3 years old when you would call something a bobo, meaning...
That or you have very immature parents.
Okay. Meaning, like that you've hurt your thumb or you've like sometimes a bobo means that there's blood. Sometimes a bobo means there isn't, but you are hurt. So you might stub something or your feelings are hurt and you're looking for your parents to have empathy. You're looking for your parents to tell you you're all right.
Wouldn't say those are the same things.
Well, they're not supposed to be the same things. I'm trying to say that there's a variety of situations where we can approach our parents for comfort, for validation that we've been hurt, for a number of things. So
I'm saying that the line, you're all right, can or cannot have empathy. And there are many people who heard, you're all right, and it was dismissive.
Oh, that's the point.
Versus, honey, look at me. You're okay. You're safe, right? That
Yes.
there's an empathetic validation of, it's okay. Look to me for guidance to know that everything is okay.
Well, I'm just going to continue with this because you're doing a great job of telling my story. No surprise. So they gave her a variety of situations where she went to her parents for a variety of things, including an actual Band-Aid, including wiping up blood, including maybe going to Emerge or to a doctor's appointment or to doing what you said with empathy. So let's just be clear that as a child, you don't know you're looking for your parents' empathy, but it's what you want or what you're hoping for because you're looking for love. You're looking to know that you're safe and that you feel secure. But I'm saying that her parents didn't give it to her. So what the guides say is she approached her parents for a variety of reasons and looking for different things. And she got a very consistent response of no empathy, no validation of what she was going through, denial of that she needed to be wiped. Say if there was the blood on the skin or a cut, the denial of the Band-Aid, the denial of warmth, the denial of empathy, love, attention, all of these things. So her parents denied her reality. So it took a little bit of time for me to give her all of that information because I have to see it. I have to use all the different senses, the inner knowings. To explain to people listening, it's like watching a TV screen, but you've got to be in the TV screen asking questions so that you understand everything that this little kid is looking for from her parents on conscious, physical, emotional, and subconscious levels, and then also be able to determine if her parents were withholding with intention, were emotionally incapable themselves of doing it, if they were doing it to whittle away her own self-esteem, if this was an attack on her. There was a whole bunch of things that had to happen between the spirit guides and myself during the session in order for me to give her all of the examples and be able to answer her questions when she said, well, did they do that on purpose? Or were my parents capable of knowing that those were my needs? Did they love me? Did they not love me? Were they capable of loving me? There were a ton of questions on Kaya's part to figure out where her parents were at when she was trying to have a variety of healthy needs to be met in her childhood. And the guides took the time to explain each one of them to her and to say how her parents, both parents, by the way, withheld these things from her out of an actual meanness, out of an actual power over and anger and a bunch of different emotions themselves, but not just emotions, like their own stunted growth from their own childhood, which wasn't actually the focus. The focus of the guides wasn't the parent's childhood. It was Kaya's and the way that her parents dealt with her. And the bottom line in all of it as time went on was that they were constantly denying her reality. So much so that this becomes a problem for her entire life at home. So then they go further, Kelly. They go a little bit into, well, no, not a little bit, quite a lot actually, into sports. And they give me an example, and I'm making this one up. I'm picking the sport hockey, but it's not hockey. It's another sport. But anyway, anybody listening can just think of any sport they want. But when she would go to a practice, a game, anything like that for hockey, and she showed any kind of, I don't want to be there, she would say to her parents, I don't want to play. They would say, yes, you do. They would tell her she had to play. They would say everything was going to be fine, that she was going to have fun. Wait and see, you will enjoy it. And over time, you could see where she would still say to her parents, I don't like it. I don't want to skate. I don't want to do these things. And her parents forced her to play. Now, I want to point something out here. She liked the girls on the team. She loved her coaches. So she had wonderful friendships with her teammates, and she loved and respected the coaches. And each time her parents saw her display these emotions, they made a point, not at hockey, but in the car or at home, to point out their point of, see, you do like it, which once again was an attempt to control her thinking and her emotions and her perception of her reality. So when she said things to her parents like, well, yeah, I like Margaret. Yeah, I like Kathy. Yeah, I like me. I like the girls, but I don't like hockey. When she would try to differentiate and know herself, they would fight with her and say, that's not true. We saw you laughing. And as she went into tween years and teenage years, she would try to explain to her parents the difference between, yes, I can be happy at hockey because I like the girls. And yes, I can be happy and excited to see my coaches because I like them as people. I still can differentiate to say, I don't like the sport.
It's such a simple fucking concept to grasp. I can enjoy being in your company on the couch in the living room and not like the TV show that's playing. And I can still sit next to you while you watch it because you love it, and I just want to be in your company.
Yes. Thank you. So the guides are pointing out these particular examples and really breaking them down for her, saying that this is what occurred because she's having difficulty remembering her childhood. And so she says to me, you know what? She says, I don't know where this is going, but I appreciate it. She said, because I do have a lot of difficulty remembering my childhood. And she says, I don't know. This is just good for me. Where I'm going to sit here and listen and see where it goes. And I said, where it's going is that the guides are trying to give you examples like over and over again in different areas of your life where both of your parents deny your reality because of what they want. So they are adult focused. They are parent focused. They are not child focused. And she went, okay, that's an interesting way of saying that. And I said, do you appreciate it? And she goes, yeah, it's helping me understand from what you've just said, Karen, is that they didn't actually check in with me to say, what's best for me? What do I like? They didn't ask me anything. I said, that's right. She's saying, you're saying when they're parent focused that they want me in a sport. They think this is the sport I should be in. They think these are the commitments that I should make. You're saying that it's all based on their own perspectives of what they want. They're not including me. They're excluding me. And I said, yes. And when they exclude you, they cut off connection. They cut off empathy. They cut off understanding and communication.
Yeah, can I just jump in about language? Like, I would never call this parent focused. I would call this image focused. And I'm saying this on purpose because we have great followers to this show. And I wouldn't want someone to walk around being like, my parents were parent focused. Like, this is about what looks good, right? This is about image and putting out a certain type of projection or image to the world to make sure that you appear successful or you appear perfect or however you want to word it. Like it's a selfish thing to make sure image is the focus.
Well said. Thank you. Then the guides went on to show in her adult years, in a job, and in her personal life, she's married and she has children, or they have children. And they show where the very same behaviors are still occurring in her, but she doesn't have her parents in the house where they're still triggering this type of stuff. And she has a husband in particular who is saying things to her like, well, what do you think the kids would like? And why don't we sit down and discuss it and see what the kids want to do? Let's ask them. We've got really different kids. We've got 3 children. They're very different personalities. Let's see if they want it. Let's see if they are enjoying what they're doing. So Kaya has a husband who is not doing what her parents are doing. He's actually wanting to check in with their 3 children to see what it is that they want to do. And they've got kids with very different personalities. We're not looking at 3 hockey players or 3 gymnasts or 3 knitters, right? Like he sees the kids are different. So he says to Kaya, we should really consider what each one of them like and where they're showing an interest or where they've got strengths and build on those strengths. And instead of saying to her husband, that's a good idea, and let's investigate. Let's be curious about that. Let's give them opportunities and then sort of weed out and see what actually works for them, and not worry if they're quitters. Not worry if we're putting money into something and then they don't want to do it. That's just part of discovery. She just shuts down altogether, Kelly. She just can't even go there to even participate in any of it. So he feels like she's disinterested, that she's tapping out, that she's not co-parenting with him. And every time he tries to bring any of this up in any kind of conversation with her, she absolutely refuses. And so I said to her, is this all correct, Kaya? And she goes, oh my God, yes. She goes, absolutely, I do. She goes, I know I ice him out. That was her phrase. Her phrase was, I ice him out. I do that. She says, I slam the door. She says, I walk out. She says, I give him stone cold looks. I refuse to speak. I refuse to engage emotionally. I refuse to give any kind of feedback with my eyes. I just totally freeze. And she says, I call it icing him out. And I said, okay.
Oh, well, that's not freeze. This is abusive behavior. Mm-hmm. There's a very big difference, and she's doing many of them.
Yes.
She's fighting, she's freezing, it's not just one thing.
Correct.
I want to be clear, because when someone says I ice them out, there's a silence, there's a quiet, there's a non-engage aspect to things, and she's talking about overt anger being displayed.
Correct. Yeah. So the guide said to her, she's acting out with her partner, her anger that she was unable to act out with her parents. And so they bring me back to when she's a little kid again, starting at that very young age. And they start showing how, at a very young age, she was displaying her raw, honest, healthiest emotions to the frustration that was created within her, the anger that was created in her by her parents' behavior, and how her parents' anger topped hers. And as a result of that, she learned, I'm not allowed to respond, because if I actually show my healthy emotions, my mom and dad are going to become abusive towards me more than they already were. And so she just learns, oh my God, I can't feel anything. I can't do anything. So as a kid and a teenager, Kaya can't have responses at all. And this really gets her into trouble at school and on the hockey rink and with the coaches. And the guides show how the coaches approach her and see all this change and ask what's going on. She can't respond. She's so afraid of any kind of responses. So now with this husband who's trying to raise healthy children, Kaya has no idea how to really engage with him. So what her response is to go back to acting out what she really wanted to do in her younger years, but she's acting it out with her husband now. And it's all unhealthy. So when I explained all of this to her, she just sat and looked at me and she went, oh my freaking God. She goes, Karen, I just don't even know how you pulled all of this out of there. And I said, do you mean talking to your spirit guides? And she goes, yeah. She says, you're describing my freaking life. She says, you're describing really accurately what I went through as a kid. And she says, just sitting here listening to it makes me want to cry. It makes me want to blow up at you. She says, just the way that I do to my husband. And she says, so I'm really struggling. And I said, okay, I said, what the guides are trying to do today is to bring it to your attention that the behavior that you're going through right now with your husband and with your children has to do with the way that your parents raised you and the way that they created a trauma bond with you. And she went, oh, I've heard this term. I've heard the term trauma bond. And I said, what do you do when you hear the term? Just out of curiosity. And she said, oh, she says, when it's on Instagram or Facebook, I swipe. I just flick, flick, flick. And I said, oh, were you not curious as to what it is? And she goes, I am. And she says, but maybe that's just me just avoiding, I don't know. She says, maybe that's just avoidance. She goes, but as soon as I see it or I hear it, she goes, I flick past it right away. And I said, I think it's time for you not to flick past any of it and to actually really learn what it is and what your parents did to create one with you around this core belief or core bond that you have now that is really creating havoc with your kids and with your partner. And I said, it's also creating havoc for you at work because you're doing the same type of thing in work environments. And I said, and the guides are explaining that you had a really horrible performance review. And she went, I did. She goes, I have had several. She goes, but the last one was really bad. And I said, yeah. I said, you're calling it bad though, Kaya? And I said, and the spirit guides would say that your employer is healthy and that your employer is actually trying to figure out how to deal with you and is trying to get help and is trying to understand what you're going through without just firing you. And she went, okay, I think I can stomach that. She says, I think I can understand what you're saying because I've actually had probably about 2 years of bad performance reviews. But my last one was like it was black and white on the table that if I don't get better, I'm gone. And I said, okay, so they're trying to explain to you without sitting down and saying to you that you have a trauma bond, get therapy, go get help, or you're losing your job. They're just creating a case to actually end up having to let you leave, but they actually care about you. And she goes, okay, I can see that. I said, otherwise they wouldn't have given us like 2 years to do this with you. They could have let you go a long time ago. And she goes, okay. And you can see the shift right there in the session where she's now understanding what's going on at work in a different way. And I said, therapy is actually going to help you understand what your parents did and how you were cornered in the responses, how healthy responses were taken away from you, where the wiring in your brain, where you were supposed to just be able to say, if this occurs, then I can say this, then my parents will have empathy for me, they will ask this question, we can make a different decision. I said, there's all kinds of proper processes when somebody is healthy. And she goes, okay. And I said, and your husband is trying to go through those and create those with you. And she goes, oh, okay. And I said, but because you don't know how to do it and he's inviting you to the table to do it, you're doing the very same thing to him that your bosses have been doing at work and your coworkers. And eventually your husband's going to go through the same situation as your boss. And she went, I don't want that to happen like this. And I went, okay, interesting. Why? And she says, well, because I do love him. And she says, and I want my family and I love my kids and I can't have everything in my life crashing. She goes, I can't. And she says, so what do I got to do? And I said, well, the guides are explaining to you what it is. And they're explaining to you that it's not on your boss and it's not on your husband. And it is certainly never on your children to fix any of this for you. They're telling you flat out that you're going to need therapy and you're going to need to go and say to a therapist that you're interested in understanding what trauma bonds are and can they explain them to you, and that you think that you may have some that were created with your parents and that one of them is centered around the fact that they always denied your reality. Start with that sentence and give these examples around sports, around your hockey. Give the examples around going up to your parents when you were injured as a little kid and when your feelings were hurt. All the examples that they gave you in all of the different areas of life so that the therapist can sit there and go, okay, I know the work that needs to be done. We can get started and I can help you with that. And that will mean that you actually get a therapist who understands what the task is and can sit and look at their own training and be able to assess their professional skills and say, yeah, that's my thing. I can do this with you. And I can help you create the wiring in your brain to fix these situations and to be able to teach you how to go through a process with your partner. Go back to work and say to your boss and your coworkers, I'm in therapy. I understand what this is, and I understand I'm presenting problems, and I'm now looking for solutions. I'm going to come back to work and discuss them with you and ask you if this works, if my getting healthier is good, and is this skill working, or can I go back to my therapist and find another one? Because there are more than one skill to solve one problem. And you've got to remember that your coworkers and your bosses have their own trauma shit, or some of them will, and that your husband might have some of his own, and that you have to consider that some of the ways that you do come forward to be healthy may not fit in with what they know about their own lives, and they may have to do some of the work too. So she sat there, Kelly. Oh my God. I mean, she just sat there and looked at me and said, this is explaining so much of so many things in my life that just don't sit well with me, but I don't know how to put my finger on any of it. And I said, well, no, you can't put your finger on it because you don't have the education or the language. And she went, oh, I think you've hit the nail on the head. She says, I like the fact that you said I don't even have the language. I said, that's right. That's why therapy will help. And these Instagram posts will help you. And the Facebook posts will help you. And all of these people that actually have the right language can help you. Language is key. If you don't even understand how to identify it, you can't discuss it. And if you can't do that, you can't start the process of problem solving. So anyway, so at the end of the session, she just said to me, I can hardly wait to play this recording for my husband. I can hardly wait to go to work tomorrow and be able to say to my boss, thank you. And I said, what? And she goes, oh, I'm going in the door and saying thank you. She says, they've given me 2 freaking years, Karen. She says, I'm going in and the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to show up with the coffee and the donuts. She says, I'm showing up to say thank you to everybody for tolerating all the shit I've been handing out. And I'm going to tell them I am getting some freaking help. And she says, I'm going to tell them it's therapy so that they don't just think I'm talking to a girlfriend about it. I want them to know that I'm serious. I want them to know that I'm coming in with different tools. She goes, I can't thank the guides enough. Can you thank them? She says, you've got the line. She says, can you thank them? And I said, well, they hear you. They hear you. They know it. And they're going to see it in every single thing that you do, every time you go to therapy, every time you try to rewire your brain into a process, into one single step that moves you in a healthier direction. I said, they're going to watch every single thing you do, hon. So she goes, well, does that mean that if I book another appointment, that they would validate that? And I said, yes. They will. They will happy dance and celebrate with you when you do. She goes, well, I can hardly wait to see you again then.
That's awesome. She got a fresh start.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to Coffee with the Sarlos. If you enjoyed the show today, help spread the love with a like, share, or review of the podcast. See you next Saturday with a brand new episode.